The Walk of Fame initiative was a Town of Milton 100th Anniversary Legacy project developed by Milton Historical Society to recognize our community's best, current and former citizens who achieved national or international recognition as top achievers in top-level fields of endeavor. These areas include athletics, arts and entertainment, business and industry, government and public service, and health and science. While we were most fortunate to have Milton Historical Society and the research and many books and writings by the late Jim Dills, who, by the way, almost single-handedly led the society to become one of the most prolific chroniclers of local history in this province, and perhaps in Canada, the genesis of the Walk of Fame arose from a desire to remind future generations about our unusually rich core of cultural, entrepreneurial, health, and science leadership. The Walk of Fame would serve to illustrate that even as a small town, Milton was a very special place with very special people, no matter how you measured them. That's how and why the Walk of Fame came about. The requirements for induction into the Walk of Fame are as follows. The nominee must be born in Milton or have spent his or her formative or creative years here. The nominee must have lived in the community for a minimum of 10 years. The nominee's accomplishments must be national and or international in scope. The nominee's achievements must be best in class in his or her best in class field of endeavor and extend for a minimum 2-year calendar period. The nominee's achievement must fit into the following fields: athletics, arts and entertainment, business and industry, government and public service, and health and science. The nominees are only added to the Walk of Fame as credentials permit, rather than on an annual basis. So when we get together at Town Hall to induct new members, it is a very special occasion indeed. All inductees to the Walk of Fame receive a commemorative plaque, will have their photograph and a brief biography highlighting their accomplishments placed on a large rotating monitor adjacent to the Walk of Fame hallway, as well as in the Walk of Fame section of the town's website. Further, their surname is placed on the Town of Milton street name inventory, so they could have a street name for them. Finally, their name is permanently inscribed on a floor tile along the Walk of Fame hallway that joins Old Town Hall to New Town Hall. While all members of the Walk of Fame are noteworthy for their accomplishments on a national, international level, I want to focus on 3 members from each of the categories to give you a sense of the quality of individuals who live or who once lived in our great community. In the athletics category, Kyla Alexander is one of only a select few women who have played women's professional basketball at an elite level for an extended period of time, having played for 6 years at this writing for the San Antonio Silver Stars and the Indiana Fever of the Women's National Basketball Association. She was a first-round WNBA draft choice in 2013. Miss Alexander has also played professional basketball for teams in Russia, France, Australia, and South Korea. She represented Canada on the national, junior, and senior teams. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Science degree with a dual major in Social Studies education and a minor in French from Syracuse University, where she attended on a full athletic scholarship. Miss Alexander holds several Syracuse women's basketball records. While there, she was recognized for her academic skills as well as her athleticism. Tigerjeet Singh fought in the Canadian, U.S., and international wrestling circuits from 1965 to 2005. During that time, he wrestled professionally in Japan for 22 years. He won many championships, including the All Japan Professional Wrestling, All Asia Heavyweight Championship, the NWA International Tag Team Championship, the International Wrestling Alliance Tag Championship, the International Wrestling Association International Heavyweight Championship, the National Wrestling Alliance Canadian Tag Team Championship, and a number of other international heavyweight championships, including the National Wrestling Alliance Canadian Tag. John Challinor played 1,028 National Hockey League games between 1978 and 1992 with the New York Islanders, Calgary Flames, Los Angeles Kings, Chicago Blackhawks, and Quebec Nordiques. A forward, Mr. Challinor scored 325 goals and added 511 assists over that period. He won 4 Stanley Cups with the Islanders and appeared in the 1984 Canada Cup, where he was named Most Valuable Player. Prior to signing up with the Islanders, Mr. Challinor played with the Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association and the legendary Gordie Howe from 1975 to 1977. Under the category of arts and entertainment, the late Peter Appleyard was an internationally acclaimed vibraharp soloist and one of the world's best vibraphonists, percussionists, and composers. Mr. Appleyard played on television and radio and toured all over the world after becoming a professional musician following World War II. He accompanied almost every major band leader, including Benny Goodman, jazz musician, including Dick Hyman, and jazz singer, including Frank Sinatra and Mel Torme, over his long and illustrious career. Mr. Appleyard was named a member of the Order of Canada in 1992. David James Elliott, or known locally as David James Smith, was the star of the hit CBS television series Jag, which ran from 1995 to 2005. Mr. Elliott played the character Commander Harmon Robb, Jr. He has played in a number of TV and movie productions, including The Man Who Lost Himself, based on the true life story of former Canadian Football League player Terry Evesham. In 2015, he portrayed iconic actor John Wayne in the movie Trumbo. Matthew Banks is a producer, director, and actor with Blue Man Group, an international arts ensemble best known for its wildly popular theatrical shows and concerts around the world that combine music, comedy, and multimedia theatrics to produce a totally unique form of entertainment. Mr. Banks was an original part of the cast that helped to establish Blue Man Group's presence in Las Vegas. When not performing or directing, he is known for his work on Friday Night, The Complete Rock Tour, The Job, and Secret in Provence. In the category of business and industry, born and raised in Milton, the late Arthur Fleming moved with his family to Windsor and as a young man to the United States, originally practicing law in Detroit. By 1896, he had relocated to Pasadena, California, where he prospered in the lumber business and amassed a fortune. In 1903, Fleming was elected to the Board of Trustees of Throop Polytechnical Institute, and by 1917, he had taken over as board president. When his wife, Clara Fleming, died in 1904, he established a memorial fund in her name, donated land, and eventually gave more than $5 million, which resulted in the establishment of the California Institute of Technology, now one of the world's top 10 universities. Mr. Fleming was instrumental in persuading Albert Einstein to come to America in the 1930s, probably saving his life. He also donated some of the lands that make up Yosemite National Park, now a World Heritage Site. Mr. Fleming underwrote the refurbishing and housing for the rail car where the November 1918 armistice was signed, and for this, he was awarded the Legion of Honor by the French government in 1927. The late Peter Limburger Robertson was the Canadian inventor of the socket head screw and the socket head screwdriver, first produced in his factory, P.L. Robertson Company Limited. In 1908, the screw was most commonly used for boat building. His firm was the largest employer in Milton for more than 50 years. Mr. Robertson also authored The Remedy, which suggested a strategy to end the Great Depression. The late Dr. James Branston Wilmot served as the inaugural president of the Canadian Dental Association in 1903 and was a force in framing the act in 1868 that established the Royal College of Dental Surgeons of Ontario. Dr. Wilmot served as a member of the board of directors and the dean of the School of Dentistry at U of T until his death in 1915. Dr. Wilmot taught dentistry to students the world over and practiced dentistry in Milton, while also serving as a member of Milton Town Council and a justice of the peace. In the category of government and public service, the late George Cottrell was born and raised in the former township of Squeezing, now the town of Milton. After graduating from the Ontario Agricultural College, he spent some years working for the Department of Agriculture before joining the Canadian Bank of Commerce in 1925, where he became a bank director from 1938 to 1953. He also served on several boards, including Maple Leaf Gardens, Abitibi Power and Paper, and the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair. His name is inscribed on the Stanley Cup for the year 1942. During World War II, Mr. Cottrell was appointed Oil Controller for Canada by Prime Minister King, described as the toughest job during the war. Mr. Cottrell handled the job with such success that he was awarded the Order of the British Empire for his service to Canada. The late Betty Kennedy was appointed a Canadian senator in 2000 by then Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Mrs. Kennedy is best known as a panelist on the long-running CBC television network show Front Page Challenge from 1962 to 1995. She was a public affairs editor of radio station CFRB and host-producer of the Daily Betty Kennedy Show from 1959 to 1986. Mrs. Kennedy was the author of 2 books, Gerhardt and Hurricane Hazel. In 1982, she was made an officer of the Order of Canada. In 1983, Mrs. Kennedy was elected to the Canadian News Hall of Fame, and in 1992, she was elected to the Canadian Broadcasting Hall of Fame. The late Joseph Martin was a lawyer, born and raised as part of the historic Martin family of Milton. He was an advocate of free trade and unrestricted reciprocity between Canada and the United States. From 1882 to 1892, the Honorable Joseph Martin served in the government of Manitoba and the Dominion Parliament for Winnipeg from 1893 to 1896. While in Manitoba, he took part in the abolition of French as an official language and the end of the separate school system. From 1898 to 1903, he served the government of British Columbia, including Premier and Minister of Education and Attorney General. From 1910 to 1918, the Honorable Joseph Martin served as a Member of Parliament in London, England. And now under the category of health and science. Now retired Colonel Chris Hadfield served in the Canadian Air Force for 35 years, a career distinguished by performing the first CF-18 intercept of a Soviet Bear aircraft in Canadian airspace, being the top graduate of the USAF test pilot school, and being the top test pilot in the US Navy. Selected as a Canadian Space Agency astronaut in 1992, Colonel Hadfield was Canada's first space shuttle mission specialist in 1995, the first Canadian to operate the Canadarm in orbit in 2001, and the only Canadian to ever board the Russian space station Mir during Expedition 34 and 35 from December 2012 to March 2013. He was appointed to the Order of Canada in 2014. He is the author of 3 books, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, You Are Here, Around the World in 92 Minutes, and The Darkest Dark. The late George Hume served as president of the Geological Association of Canada, the Royal Society of Canada, and the Geological Association of America. Dr. Hume also served as chief of the Geological Survey of Canada and later Director General of Scientific Services in the Federal Department of Mines and Resources. He was awarded an Order of the British Empire in recognition of his research into petroleum and natural gas extraction. His considerable library of geological material, presented to the University of Calgary Geology Department, helped form the holdings of Gallagher Library there. The late Dr. Colin Cameron Lucas was made a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada in 1959, the highest honor for a Canadian scientist as a result of the magnitude of critical research he undertook during his long career, including the analysis of human hair. A professor at the Banting and Best Department of Medical Research at the University of Toronto, he was a member of a number of scientific societies in Canada, Great Britain, and the United States, and became a Fellow of the Chemical Institute of Canada in 1947, also serving on the council of that organization. So there you have it, a sampling of the many Miltonians who have put our community on the map since its founding in 1857. The next Walk of Fame induction event is tentatively scheduled for February 2022 during Ontario Heritage Week. Thank you.